How are ya? What's going on? Um, what am I doing? So, I am reviewing the books I've read. So, I'm reading a book and then I'm reviewing it for posterity. When I look back, I will be able to see myself at that moment in time and see what I was thinking and my thoughts on it. So, today I'm just sharing my thoughts on James Longo's Hitler and Habsburgs. You know, we all heard of Hitler, but I was like, who are these Habsburgs? And it said that Hitler and the Habsburgs, the vendetta against the Austrian royals. Since I'm, Eastern European, I know that not all about, but I know about Romanovs and what happened to them. The Bolsheviks killed them in the basement, shot them all. But I didn't know about the Habsburg and the Austrian royalty and what Hitler's treatment of them. The way it is written is James Longo is he's able to sort of have it always, it's not a dry historical read at all. It keeps going and it's interesting and it's engaging without being monotonous and boring. And it's also, Longo doesn't throw facts at you too much. I mean, he does, everything's factual, I guess, but it doesn't feel like a textbook, which is what I love. The way this book is set up is that it combines World War I and World War II together to sort of weave in the narration from one to the other. And because everything is cause and effect, so the events that occurred prior to World War I have attributed to World War I, and those events have attributed to World War II. So everything's interconnected in Europe and everywhere. And in high school, I have, we all know the basics of World War II, Hitler versus Axis versus Allies, and all of that. But if you would have asked me prior to this book, just tell me what about World War I, and I know it was about Germany and that they got punished, but I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly. He starts out with Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie's visit to Sarajevo, where they subsequently get killed by a Serbian assassin, terrorist, which ropes them in to declaring war against, I believe, Bosnia. And then because there's a lot of Slavic people there, so then Russia steps in, and then other countries step in, and that's how World War I started. So that one assassination has triggered a World War I, which makes me think, even though that's a huge thing, an assassination, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a minute. People die every day. It's a minute. I know it's a royal, someone heir to the throne, so it's a bigger deal. But still, it amazes me how that assassination of one person and his wife, of those two people, has triggered such a horrific war and roped in all of these countries, and then eventually roped in more countries in World War II, the whole world. So reading this book, it took me, I don't know, 2 months, I think, because I'm fascinated about everything, so I would go on these tangents and I would research the Konopiste castle and the Habsburg palace and the palaces in Vienna and where all the Habsburgs lived, and then go on a tangent into Sophie's background and Czechoslovakia and the Czech Republic and all. So every time I Wikipedia it, I go, and then there's a documentary about it. So then you get roped into a little video, and then it really prolongs your reading speed. But I think this is the way to go. Otherwise, you're just reading it, and then you remember it one day, and then you forget about it the next. So I think this is the way to go. And I'm not going to drag this review for a long time, because what am I going to reiterate you the facts? There's so many facts, but what did I think? Let's talk about what I thought. So I've learned about Franz Ferdinand. So he was for the people, I believe. That's how Longo described it. And what I didn't realize is that there were a lot of ethnic minorities in Austria. There was a melting pot. So there was Slavic people, Jewish people, all kinds of nationalities, all fighting for their right to be wherever they are. And I think Hitler, growing up in Linz, I believe that it was how did Longo put it? Slavization of Germany, of Austria. There was he had a nationalistic ideology behind him, and he was seeing that all the racial minorities and all the ethnic minorities sort of pulling away at Austrian culture and German culture and sort of bastardizing it in a way. For him, that's what he believed. So he wanted to bring Germany back to its, I keep saying Germany, it's Austria, because Germany is another country. But he wanted to unite Germany together back with Austria. So the book delves into a little bit of Hitler's childhood, not childhood, more young adulthood, but his time in Vienna and his inability to get into the art academy, and of course Hitler blames the Jews because they would, the way Longo puts it, he thought that they took all the spots, so because of these Jews, he wasn't able to be offered a spot, and if that, who knows what the truth is, if it's, that's what he believed. And then I've learned this interesting fact about Hitler's mom and his doctor. Hitler's mom was dying of cancer, and the doctor who would help his mom was a Jewish doctor. And then later in Hitler's takeover of Germany and then eventually Austria, that Jewish doctor that was so benevolent to his mother was granted a safe pass to United States. And I think that's examples where Hitler was kind to a Jewish person. Not that it gives him any moral points. He's still a horrible, tyrant. But I guess there's like a minimal sort of understanding of being grateful to a person regardless of their race or regardless of their religious. Longo mentions that at some point in Vienna, Trotsky and Stalin lived in the 30s, I believe, or 20s, in Vienna, which made me go on this research tangent. And I was like, how did they get there and why? Because these are all poor Slavs. I know Stalin was from Georgia, and they're not of wealth. So to go to Vienna, even by foot or by just hitchhiking, that's like a big undertaking. So how did they get there? And I doubt that a village person, I'm not sure about Trotsky, but Stalin, he had an accent when he spoke Russian. So I don't know. I don't think he spoke German to go to Vienna like that, so to stay there to study. So I don't know if that's like an urban legend or what. And I was like, what made all these revolutionaries go to Vienna? And it's almost conspiratorial. All these people that ended up to be in power were all at one place, at one time in one place, at the same time in the same place. It's a little like, why is that? So all these people, I guess Vienna is huge, gigantic. So you can, I've been in Paris, doesn't mean, but back in the day, the travel wasn't as easy. It wasn't like you could just like do a few nights in Vienna. It's a big, expensive undertaking. And then what I've also learned is that, how do you review this book? Every single page is filled with a historical fact. The bibliography is a quarter of the book. So for me there's no possible way anyone can, unless you just reading every single word on this page as the review. This is less of a review kind of show, more of my opinion for posterity. So when I look back in 10 years, I can see where I was mentally and where I was intellectually, while reading this book. And I know it's late at night and I'm not giving you, and I didn't want to prepare. I sort of want to talk from, just wing it. I didn't want to give you just like a summarization, but just if nothing's isn't remembered, then nothing's remembered. But it was like time traveling reading this book. I really recommend it. I really felt like I was walking those paths. I was, looking into those windows of royalties and, comparing myself to them. And wouldn't it be nice one day to join them for dinner? It's so just, that amazes me. I keep saying amazing, and so we can find another synonym, but that Hitler was homeless, and he would go and look into, the way I pictured it in my mind, look into these palaces, see the beautiful balls they would have, and almost like a Cinderella, wishing to attend. And then there's photos later when he took over in World War II of him marching to Austria, marching to Vienna, and giving a speech, a passionate speech, on the balcony of, I'm not sure which palace, there's so many palaces, but on the balcony of that same palace where he once, looked up onto the balcony, looking at Franz Joseph or are they both Francis? Yeah, Franz Joseph or Franz Ferdinand. So like, what a coincidence that he ended up there. What a master manipulator and manifester. So the first few books, first few chapters, talks about Hitler's frustration with the amount of ethnicities and races that have been, crowding Vienna and Austria as a whole, and it shows his. Longo explores how passionate Hitler was about politics and how passionate he was, regarding debate and debating ideas, which is so important, and I don't think it's done enough these days. And I wish I could debate more things. It's such a valuable skill to be able to express your ideas, and maybe this in some cathartic way I am trying to do these videos to debate myself or to challenge myself, because I think people are afraid to say what they think, and therefore everyone's just silent. So at least I can debate myself in this video. Also, Longo talks about Maximilian and Ernst Hohenberg. Maximilian and Ernst Hohenberg, the heirs, the two sons of Franz Ferdinand, that were heirs to the throne, I believe. Or I learned a word called morgantic, which means that the marriage wasn't held. The children of that marriage are not entitled to any of the privileges or any of the benefits that someone who has been born of a marriage that is with someone royal. For instance, Sophie wasn't of royalty, so therefore I believe it's called morganantic. But back to Maximilian and Ernst Hohenberg. I've learned that they were the first political prisoners sent to Dachau. I think that's how you pronounce it. Because Hitler didn't want them to. I'm surprised he didn't kill them. I wonder why that is. Why he sent them to be protected, but also, they could have easily died in 3 weeks of, tuberculosis, dehydration, overworked, malnutrition, some disease they could have picked up. I don't know. They could have easily died. So why keep them around? If you are trying to prevent the bloodline, the Habsburg bloodline, you were trying to prevent them coming into power, Why are you keeping them alive? I question that. I mean, thank God he did, because, they don't deserve the treatment they got, but I wonder what is the point of keeping up, I guess to keep face, because if you kill them, then immediately that seems tyrannical and you want to seem fair, or I guess it's a political move. You want to keep your opponent trapped and, tie their hands, but not fully kill them to look bad. I guess that's it. And there's also the few nights before the assassination of Sarajevo, Longo talks about how the Bishop Lanai, had a vision of them being shot, and there's all these premonitions of this big event, and that also Franz Ferdinand wrote in his diary, I believe, that I feel like I'm dying soon. I feel something's gonna happen. So everybody had this. I don't know if they all collectively manifested this assassination, um, but everyone had a premonition, and everybody, once it happened, everywhere, it seems like so many examples of people going, "Oh yeah, I did have a weird feeling prior to this. I did feel like something." So everybody kind of knew that it's going to happen. I guess when I think he's just the biggest target. When you are heir to the throne with a certain political agenda, I guess he was very friendly to all these. He's trying to unite all these races together, and all these minorities and all these countries and different colonies, or satellite regions of Austrian Empire. And when you're trying to appease everybody, of course you're gonna have enemies, and they'd want to kill you. So naturally, when you're an heir to such a humongous empire and such a difficult political situation, you're bound to have enemies that want you dead. So it's either the people are not happy with. You can't please everybody, so someone's gonna want to murder you. It's horrible. And it also talks about when Franz Ferdinand was assassinated, that I guess in Mein Kampf, or I don't know where Longo found this, that Hitler was sort of saying, "Oh, thank God that happened. Now the race war will start, and now the cleansing begins," sort of a thing. And I was trying to understand where Longo got this take on Hitler's. I guess he wrote it in his. Oh, it says that in Mein Kampf right here, that Hitler was afraid that the shots might have came from German students, but then he was relieved that it came from Serbs. Okay. Oh, it says there's a great quote that I think Hitler said that, or no, maybe it's in a news article. The greatest friend of the Slavs had fallen beneath the bullets of Slavic fanatics. So Franz Ferdinand was a friend of the Slavs, and he wanted them to be, have rights just like anyone else in the Austrian Empire. I guess I need to read more books and research about the Germany and Austria. Why were they separated at that time, and why was there such a big effort on certain people's part to connect them together? I guess when we're together, we're stronger, type of a thing, maybe. That. And there was a German word for joining together with Austria. I forget the name. And I'm sure everyone's like, how can you not remember? It's so famous. But it was so informative, this book, and I recommend this. It's from the point of view of the royals, and Ernst and Maximilian's wives have worked day and night, try to get their husbands back from the camp and try to save their lives and make sure they're okay. And it also has a sort of a feminist, supportive wife kind of an aspect on relentless support and trying to help someone you love angle towards the end of this book. The amount of efforts that these two women have undergone to make sure their husbands, I mean, up to the point of speaking to the head chief of security, up to the point of like a big SS officer trying to release them. And also I remember reading the amount of hotels when Nazi regime took over, the amount of hideouts and hotels the royal families have to move. Then they go to Czechoslovakia, then they get them, and then they have to go to a different palace, then they have to hide, then they have to go to a hotel. Then it was like a cat and mouse kind of game that they were being chased out. I'll leave you with a quote from Maria Theresa, the Archduchess, and a melancholy beauty of the Habsburg Empire. She says, "Trust God, but never try to understand God. The world works in mysterious ways." A little something for you to think about. I mean, I'm just flipping through the book, and I mean, I underlined a lot of, knowing that I would make this video, I underlined the fact that, for instance, and Longo briefly mentions Leni Riefenstahl, Germany's best known female film director. So I went on a tangent with her, and there's like a 3-hour documentary on her, in which I think in hour 1, learning about her techniques. And I mean, of course, she denies that she knew any of the horrible atrocities of Hitler's and Nazi regime, and that she was just sort of utilizing her film technique to, make beautiful films, like she did, I guess, with that Olympic film. I forget what it's called, Test of Glory or Triumph of the Will. But she utilized her technique and created these pieces of art that promoted used as Nazi propaganda. So she therefore was part of the whole machine. So she is guilty. But it's interesting to see her justification and the way she talks about film and not, this is a review about the book, but now I'm going to linear Heist and Fall, and overall James Longo, great book. I've learned a lot, a deeper appreciation for a writer like yourself who has to read about 500,000 books just to put together this thread of royals versus Hitler, and a beautiful, scary, book, nonfiction, but very interesting and engaging. And I've learned a lot, and I love history. I'm able to, because my great grandma was in a concentration camp, so reading this, there is some sort of a connection or some sort of an interest. What putting myself into her shoes, I'm scared to imagine what she has gone through, what she has seen there. So therefore, I'm interested in World War One, World War Two, that time, because it's so horrific, but very interesting how people ended up going that path, that crazy path, how you end up going there.